Oh my God, Anita.
Hello, welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I am your humble host, Willie Bragg. I hope this day finds you well. Anyway, today's the 4th of July, and there are reasons, as far as the average American celebrating it, it's your day off, what have you. I think it's okay as far as people celebrating it. But is there a reason to really celebrate when, we Americans have been losing our freedoms for a long time? And I'm going to tell you that I think that the 21st century is the decade where freedoms are significantly being lost. Whereas previously, it seems like we were moving more and more toward the concept of freedom. And no, I'm not talking about freedom the way that maybe the right-wing people like to put the narrative. And I hate that they do it because they seem to have the monopoly on that phrase freedom when they're not for freedom. And it makes the word sound right-wing when it isn't. So, and I think it's kind of time for the left to take that word back from them and control the narrative for a change. And that's why I'm here and doing this show, because I want to do my part for the left to capture the narrative and to capture the narrative and to basically own some of these people back. That's what it comes down to. Let me move that out of the way. There we go. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. So anyway, 4th of July basically was the Declaration of Independence, the founding of our nation. We had this document called the U.S. Constitution, adopted on June 21st, 1788. And it became the blueprint for what's supposed to be a free society. And, we had a lot of problems. We still have problems. Gosh, we have plenty of problems. We had a lot of progress. And we have some setbacks, unfortunately, and our Supreme Court showing its problematic nature right now. We're depending on who you talk to, because if you talk to some people, you say democracy, they get defensive. We're a constitutional republic. Calm down. This damn nuance. Conversations, nuance. Okay, okay. Technically correct. We are a constitutional republic. We're also a representative democracy. We're fucking both, okay? Stop it with all these right-wingers and be like, trying to correct somebody, as if they're correct on everything. They're not. So anytime somebody try to cut you off and say, we're a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, you just tell them, okay, fair enough, we're a constitutional republic, but we're also a representative democracy. You just got to tell them that. So, but you also got to tell them the truth that we have plenty of crimes in our history. We still do. We have the crimes of slavery, genocide against the Native Americans, suppression of labor. And it was violent in many cases, became less violent, more passive, and it could be very well violent again. So there's that. Suppression against the anti-war movement. It's been violent in many times. As it's been kind of depending on the situation, sometimes it's a little more subdued. We've had segregation, anti-LGBTQ sentiment, which there's been some improvement and progress, but unfortunately we have a Supreme Court that has a right-wing movement in this country that wants to reverse everything back, and they have their listening ear at the moment. We had Japanese internment during World War II, which was a crime against humanity. We dropped the bomb on both countries. Those two bombs in that country, Japan. We're the only country that actually dropped bombs on people. We always remember that. Guantanamo Bay, during the Bush-Cheney years. And we still do torture that we probably don't even know nothing about to this day. So we had a lot of problems over the years. So we had a lot of problems, and some of the problems have been corrected. And it's not like, oh, there he is just doing the blame America first. Every country's got problems, and countries have done what they could to correct their problems. And good for any country that can take the time to correct their problems. So hold on here. So one of the problems is when Bill Clinton got elected. Now in the 21st century, bipartisanship, we have bipartisan fascism. And Bill Clinton became president. And we're going to start with the 1990s, the 1994 crime bill, because Bill Clinton's new Democrat philosophy, Democratic Leadership Council, third way politics. Basically, the Democratic Party became Reaganized under Bill and Hillary Clinton. They Reaganized the Democratic Party. They shifted away from being a quasi-Labor Party and turned it into something to the right of the British Conservative Party. That's the kind of party it became. Crime bill. This crime bill that came out in 1994 ended up incarcerating a lot of African Americans. And Bill and Hillary Clinton will act like they are the champions of African Americans, and they are not. And it was also nicknamed the Biden crime bill. So Bill and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden are hypocrites in that regard. The 1996 Telecommunications Act basically allow monopolies to take place, and you have all these tech companies that needs to be broken down. And as a result of the Telecommunications Act, it kind of merged all these telecommunication companies and media companies and a lot of areas of communications. Basically created a lot of monopolies. Around 1998 and 1999, it was worked. So a crown piece of New Deal legislation called Glass-Steagall was revoked, which basically put deregulation on overdrive. It led to the housing bubble in 2007. And they were not doing anything to correct that. We're probably going to have another one before too long. So that happened under Bill Clinton. And so I put him in the 21st century category because he was technically president in the early years of the 21st century, the year 2001 and the early months of 2021. First couple, not even the first months of 2001, rather. Sorry. Anyway, so that was the Clinton presidency. So we entered the next chapter in this sliding toward totalitarian direction, or authoritarianism, shall I say. And that was the George W. Bush years, from basically 2001 to 2001 to 2009. So right there, we had, after the 9/11 attacks, we had the USA Patriot Act. We had ICE that was implemented, that when you going after, using the federalizing the military, basically, to go after immigrants, and hunting them down the way that they do at the border. When you have customs, you do not need to have ICE doing what they're doing. But anyhow, you have that as an organization. You created by the Bush administration. You have the Guantanamo Bay, where people are being tortured. You have the smearing of political opponents by their media arm during the Bush years, which was mostly Fox News, talk radio, TV, preachers, evangelical programs on TV, that sort of thing, and cancel culture. People think that cancel culture was something that liberals invented. Let me tell you about the cancel culture that transpired during the George W. Bush years. We're talking about boycotting the Dixie Chicks. We're talking about the attempts to fire Ward Churchill from the University of Colorado, where, even though he's a piece of shit these days, Bill Maher had his program, Politically Incorrect, taken away from him. They changed the name of French fries in the cafeteria of the Capitol building into Freedom Fries. Talk radio was going around, as I said, doing its smearing against all liberals and progressives in the name of partisanship, and doing a culture war, so to speak. The same thing with their partners, the evangelical preachers, your John Hagees, your Pat Robertsons, that type. And one thing I have said about Fox News in the year 2022, or probably in the last 6-7 years, I still don't like Fox News. I still don't like Fox News. I still don't like the Fox News. Having that said, they have moderated to some degree, but they only have moderated because the hardcore crazies went to OANN, One American News Network, and Newsmax. So if you're watching Fox News and you notice they're a little less crazy now than they were sounding, let's say 10 years ago, or 15 or 20 years ago, a lot of their hardcore crazies found places that sounded like Fox News 20 years ago, and was even further right than what Fox News were 20 years ago, called One American News Network and Newsmax today. So you had that during the Bush years, with the Iraq War, the going into Afghanistan. You had the government spying on you. You had people at airports basically molesting the hell out of all passengers, making you take your shoes off. You had these people just filling you up and everything like that. But it's amazing that the right wing were okay with all that when it was happening under George W. Bush. But as soon as Obama came in there, all of a sudden they started sounding like civil libertarians, which it proves what partisan hacks they are. And the liberals do the same thing too when there's a changing of the guard. I'm not trying to excuse one side or another. I admit there's a little bit of tribalism on my part, but I'm also strive to be fair, and I do call out partisan hackery whenever partisan hackery transpire and rear its ugly head. And speaking of ugly head, Hillary Clinton kind of made a comeback. So she sure did. And as the Secretary of State in the Obama administration, carrying the Bush foreign policy just a little bit worse, destroying the most prosperous country in Africa at that point, Libya. the country that had a universal healthcare system, a universal basic income, a country that actually, even though that Muammar Gaddafi was not a socialist, he modeled his economy after Joseph Broz Tito of Yugoslavia. So he did use a socialist model that did work. And who destroyed it? Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the one that the right-wing people thought was a socialist all these years. Yeah, some socialist she turned out to be. Obama came in, hope, change. Everything was supposed to be better. He brought us the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. Now, in mild defense of Obama, he was a little bit hesitant in signing that into law, but he got coerced into it because Mitt Romney said that if Obama does not sign it into law, when I become president, I will. And Obama kind of caved under pressure, buckled under pressure, and he signed it into law. And the NDAA of 2012 basically gives the authority to turn this country into a police state and to go and have anybody arrested at will and put behind bars without being charged, as long as the U.S. government deems it, if they think you're some kind of a terroristic threat to our national security. I am not lying to you. I remember that at the time. Obama expanded the war from 2 countries to 7 countries. Cancel culture did continue. It did continue, but not to the level that they have you thinking it continued. It did continue, but it was not like Obama was the one that was, wringing his hands and wanting college campuses to do this sort of shit. That's been a thing already. A president has one way or the other does not have anything to do with what people do on college campuses. But you know what? A lot of anti-BDS laws started taking place, which was an assault on the First Amendment, and that was bipartisan. The evangelicals in a lot of southern states put the anti-BDS laws because if you go and urge a boycott of Israel and hurt Israel's feelings by criticizing them, they don't really enforce these laws in any of these states. But theoretically, you could be towed off to jail for up to 20 years and charged with a $250,000 fine. Same thing in the northern states where, there is a high Jewish population. A lot of liberal politicians do this to defend Israel as part of that Washington consensus, and it's their version of political correctness too. So this is one of the areas where there's a little bit censorship is kind of bipartisan there. You got also remember the Affordable Care Act, which forces you to buy private health insurance. Heritage Foundation healthcare plan. It was implemented in Massachusetts, signed into law by Governor Mitt Romney. It was called Romney Care at one point. So the Obama years was not particularly a friendly place for civil liberties either. The one good thing about Obama was that attempts at removing net neutrality did not take place at all. And good for Obama for it not happening. He had the power under the Federal Communications Commission to do it, and he did not. Notice that the internet was a hell of a lot freer when Obama was president than it became under the changing of the administration of the Guard. And I'm going to go into that in a moment. So you had political correctness was perceivably a problem. And to some degree, I'm sympathetic to that argument about political correctness being a problem. But I am not so sure that voting for Donald Trump was ever the answer. But that's what some people believed, and they voted in Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump came in, and he promised to be a different kind of Republican. I will argue that the 2016 Trump was a better Trump than the 2020 Trump that ran for re-election. The 2020 Trump that ran for re-election became the same old tired Republican pricks that tend to run, and he ran under culture war crap. He ran under all that bullshit. But at least in 2016, he did cut back on the culture war crap, and he talked more about economics and populism and things of that nature. It would have been nice if he would have been sincere about it instead of appointing a bunch of Goldman Sachs assholes in his administration. But under Trump, he was hostile toward the First Amendment. He wanted to harmonize the libel laws of the United States with that of Great Britain. If anybody who knows me knows, I'm an Anglophile from hell. I mean, I love Great Britain. I had British flags all over my home. I mean, if I had it my way, I would have been born in Northern England. If I would have chosen the country I would have been born in many ways. I know I'm weird like that. But the thing about it is, National Health Service, I love this sort of thing. I wish I would have had a British accent. I love Great Britain in so many cultural ways. But the one thing I don't like about Great Britain, they're not that great on free speech. And Donald Trump wants the United States to harmonize its libel laws with that of Great Britain, where basically if a public figure is insulted by a nobody, that public figure can sue that nobody, and that nobody can, when charged and become guilty, would be forced to pay the law fees of powerful, wealthy people that they sue, and pay for all the damages and fines, and pay for damaging of a person's reputation. Donald Trump favored this law. And it was, even though that Bill Maher's an asshole, it was basically because he tried suing Bill Maher, because Bill Maher basically called him an orange orangutan. I mean, and come on now. I mean, that's very petty and thin-skinned, And remember, it was the January 6th insurrection. Now, I'm going to tell you, I personally don't think he was directly involved, but he said enough that kind of made people very excited out there. And the people who were involved, I do think that they should be, when we talk about members of Congress or people that were directly involved with the Stop the Steal rally, I think that they should be removed from Congress, and the people who were involved with the activism and all that broke into the Capitol and did a lot of horrible things, they should be, put in prison. Maybe some of the people that got excited that they didn't do anything but just barged in, and they were just excited by the whole event, misdemeanor, light fine. Donald Trump is a supporter of a nationwide anti-BDS law, again, that I mentioned, that's adopted in pretty much half the states in this country. And remember, the Supreme Court, he's stacked up the courts with a lot of right-wing ideologues, and we're seeing a major erosion of civil liberties right now as we speak. Also, during his presidency, net neutrality was removed. And with net neutrality being removed, I've noticed a whole lot of things have happened with the internet in the last several years, and that there's been more suppression of free speech on the internet than ever before. And that's problematic too. And they're trying to create a multi-tier system where, you have to buy your influence to go and basically to get to, the more money you have, the more influence you're going to have. So now this next photo here, this is not Tulsi Gabbard at the age of 70 years old. That's Neera Tanden, who was going to become the chair or the head of the Office of Budget Management. Again, that's not Tulsi Gabbard at the age of 70. That's what she looks like in the photo. Very repressive, the kind of person that Biden would have in the administration. But I think she is in the serving in the administration in some lesser role somehow. But we'll say that Biden basically creating the Disinformation Governance Board that was thankfully put to the side and scrapped. But we don't know for how long, because it was so blatant in regard to what it was going to do to the First Amendment and freedom of the press in this country. And so there was a lot of backlash from across the political spectrum. There should have been. And so just kind of like, that's also a major push toward totalitarianism. And Hillary Clinton urging Democrats to basically throw the trans community under the bus because Hillary Clinton's a fucking turf, and that sort of thing. And then there are their attempts at Joe Biden to basically extradite Julian Assange into the United States, and basically to have the United States torture this poor man for exposing to the world the truth about some of the crimes that the United States committed, especially in the last 50 years. Everything from the Kissinger archives all the way to the Iraq War, all the way up to Hillary Clinton using the DNC to cheat Bernie Sanders in the 2016 primaries. All of that is in there with WikiLeaks. And so there's been a bipartisan push to go and make trouble for Julian Assange. And some, decade ago, before the 2016 election, the right wing were pretty much unified in killing the man. They wanted to have him killed. Well, some of them became okay with him because they claim he helped Donald Trump win the election. At the same time, you have some liberals who were pro Assange. They turned against Assange for the opposite reason. Oh, he's in bed with the Russians. That kind of crazy nonsense. Well, you have a situation here that we have a man that's probably going to get tortured. We got to have a man that's probably going to they'll probably die. He'll lose his will to live. And this is probably what the U.S. government is wanting to see happen. So, I mean, you have to kind of wonder, are we going to see a reverse in this trend? And it's not just one side is against freedom and the other side is the beacon of liberty or what have you. Everybody seems to be on a quest, on a race, on how much more of an authoritarian asshole I can be than the last guy in power. And so I just food for thought in this 4th of July here. So right now, on the chat line, we have here Snipe Hunt Master. Bipartisan, where Republicans have a terrible idea and the Democrats go along with it. That's been my problem with bipartisanship all these years in Washington, D.C. Sure have. Let's see. Freedom ticklers. That's funny. Joey Bowie wrote, favorite years of the internet. You remember? Yeah, that would have been the 1990s when it was the information superhighway, and it was basically the Wild West. I want to see that come back. Let's see here. Bruno Goetz wrote, am I the only one who misses some of the crazy left-leaning conspiracies of the George W. Bush years? The 9/11 truthers were pretty entertaining. Now, I've never been a 9/11 truther myself, but I've heard people. People think that 9/11 truthers is a right. It's just solely on the right. It's kind of on the right and the left. It just depends who you talk to. Jesse Ventura, I know, has kind of tiptoed in 9/11 trutherism, and so has Alex Jones. So I mean, it's kind of like it's basically something that's you could say is it's kind of nonpartisan in some ways, but most people from across the spectrum realize it was just some bad people from Saudi Arabia, some from Morocco, that kind of worked together and the attacks on 9/11. So anyway, 90s and 2000, Alex Jones was pretty fun. Ha ha ha. Shaquille Oatmeal. Well, I'm gonna tell you about Alex Jones. I don't agree with Alex Jones. I want to make that clear. But when they started getting rid of some of the really messed up folks on YouTube and other platforms, I was kind of upset when they did that to Alex Jones. Not because I was a fan of his work, I'm not, but he was genuinely entertaining to listen to. I mean, it was like cringe entertaining. Because I mean, I actually went to sleep one night after work, and I had a dream that Alex Jones saw me and he was confronting me like he was going to kick my ass because he knew who the hell I was. Well, he doesn't know who I am, but in the dream he did. He looked at me, he got pissed off, and he ran toward me like he was going to kick my ass. I was like, "Holy shit, Alex Jones is going to attack me in the dream!" And then he was like, "Move out of my way! I'm going to save this republic!" I mean, I was like, holy cow. And I woke up. I was like, that was weird. That was weird. So, yeah, I had a weird dream that Alex Jones was going to attack me. So, and it was just kind of like, wow, did I just dream that? So, no, I mean, Alex Jones was entertaining. I mean, all that, I mean, and all that, and Rob screaming gay, I mean, it's just kind of like, like, and people are getting offended by some of the stuff he says. I'm like, come on now. I mean, I know he's crazy, but he's also, he knows that this triggers people. And I just like, there's a little bit of a trolling he's doing himself willingly too. You have to realize that. I mean, and I wouldn't put, I wouldn't even put him in the same category with Richard Spencer or David Duke as in that regard. I mean, and I was against giving them the internet death penalty too on social media, even though they're horrendous, really horrendous and terrible. I'm a free speech guy, and even the worst of 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 the worst should not ever have their free speech taken away from them. It's just a principle thing, because if they go after, it's easy to go after David Duke. It's easy to go after Richard Spencer. It's easy to go after Alex Jones, especially with some of the outrageous stuff that he's made. It's easy to go make an example out of them. But sometimes when you go and do that, the tables can one day turn, and when you have leftists who favor censorship, it ends up biting us in the back and ass every time. It has in recent years. I mean, look what they're doing with these anti-BDS laws around the country. Who's getting punished? I mean, who's getting cancel cultured, for example? I mean, you got the state of Texas that forces people to sign a loyalty oath to Israel. And you had a Palestinian speech therapist that you're going to ask a Palestinian woman to sign a loyalty oath to Israel for real? I mean, and then you're going to ask her that, knowing full well that's where she's from. You're going to ask her that, and then fire her when she refuses. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, just the analogy of it all and everything. Let's see. The Bill Hicks theory makes sense sometimes. Oh, you're talking about Alex Schmidt. You're talking about the fact that Bill Hicks and Alex Jones, when Alex Jones was a little skinnier, kind of resembled each other. I have noticed that too. Yeah, I have noticed that. There's a little bit of a resemblance there. Oh, I think they're two separate people, but I do see why people say that. I do. So anyhow, if you all like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with what I have to say, comment anyway. We will have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. Hit that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and remember, we must do what we can to reject corporate media, because they got nothing to offer, nothing whatsoever to offer of any merit or any value. And before I go, I just want to say that starting on Wednesday, and hopefully once a week, I'm going to try to do it on Wednesday, but once a week, I'm going to attempt to interview somebody. We may have to skip a week if I can't find somebody, but we're going to do this once a week, interview somebody on this program. Starting day after tomorrow should be Joey McCarran at 8 p.m. Tomorrow, July the 6th. On July 13th, I will be interviewing Matthew Ho, the Green Party candidate for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina, who had his U.S. Senate seat candidacy taken away from him by North Carolina State Board of Elections. He will be interviewed on January. I keep saying July 13th at 11 a.m. This is how we're going to be doing this about once a week. And as I said, we're going to have a definite time slot at a definite time slot eventually, once a week. But that's how it stands. So everybody's going to be notified from here on. So I will basically conclude. I will basically conclude by saying to you all, music. And happy 4th of July. If depending on your time zone, just go ahead, eat, drink, be merry, smoke up if it's still legal in your state. And if it isn't legal and you smoke, I'm not going to say anything. Promise. Take care. What the hell? I keep on having problems here. Sorry, folks. There we go.